it's always the question of what to do with a new experience, right? How do you listen to a piece of music you've never heard before, perhaps in a medium like percussion that you're unfamiliar with, that feels a little scary, that feels a little unusual. And I mean, I went sort of through boot camp with that. I mean, I come from a family of farmers. My mother was a pretty good amateur pianist, but she never pursued it. She became a farm wife and the mother of 5 children. So I would hear her play Chopin late at night, and it would mix with the sounds of the wind, across the farmlands in this fantastic way until, for years I only associated Chopin with winter and with howling winds, because that's the only time I ever heard it. But when I started playing percussion, and especially when I started playing contemporary percussion, I was playing for my family, who really didn't have the faintest idea how to understand it. I mean, there were both fantastic and painful memories of my dad leaving Clear Lake in planting season to come to the University of Iowa, where I was doing a master's recital, and sitting through back-to-back performances of Contacta, because we thought the Stockhausen masterpiece at 35 minutes long for piano, percussion, and electronic tape was just simply insufficient if you played it just once. And I mean, what he made of all of that, I have no idea. But our conversations were absolutely fascinating. And here was a man who didn't have a musical background, didn't come armed with standards about classical music, or didn't understand the contribution of the Vienna Philharmonic to modern cultural thought, didn't think about that at all. But he was a person who understood what it meant to build something. He was a person who understood what it meant to take a stand. He was a person who understood what it meant to take a risk and go off by yourself and say, if this works, it's great, but if it doesn't, we're basically sunk, because that's the life story of a farmer. And so this is what I grew up around. And early on, I realized that the way to fail was to be dishonest, whether as a performer or as a listener. So playing for my family taught me that the only way forward was to dive in completely. And when I was a young professional, I signed on with this company, an agency from New York. I don't think it exists anymore, called Affiliate Artists. And they put musicians, performers in unconventional performing sites. And so I spent 6 weeks in my first tour with them, 6 weeks in central Washington, in and around Wenatchee, Washington, playing Stockhausen Zyklus. I played Stockhausen Zyklus 125 times in central Washington, in packing plants and libraries and mental health institutions and old folks' homes, and at a construction site where I literally thought they were going to kill me because of, I mean, I came a little late, I'll grant you, and they were finished and they were well into their keg of beer. And so when I started in on the great modernist masterpiece, Stockhausen Zyklus, there was a sort of grumbling amongst the workers that told me that perhaps I'd gone one step too far. I mean, that's that crazy thing where you realize that the line you're trying not to cross is just a couple of feet behind you. And so I stopped playing and I passed out the instruments and we had a jam session for 45 minutes. That was a much better plan. So as I have tried to figure out how to present unusual music in such a way that is honest and friendly to the listener, my only real advice to people who are trying to understand unusual music is to think of it as a kind of conversation. A conversation between people who want to be friends. And from my side, I think that the most honorable thing I can do to a listener is to take him or her seriously. So whenever I have a chance to play in front of people, I play the music that moves me, whether it's the most difficult to understand or the easiest to understand. And I think it's a disservice to a listener to do anything other than that. So when I have the great privilege and thrill of playing a solo concert at OjaiU, I'm going to give you the things that have moved me over the course of the last 40 years. And some of them will be prickly, but if you get close enough, you can befriend even a porcupine.